Building awareness and concern for pronunciation is very important in an English language classroom. In this regard, we can assume that a good English language teacher would make his students know that what is involved in learning a pronunciation. For example, the knowledge about various sounds, stress, intonation, and sound patterns, etc. Similarly, he should also develop a concern for learning the pronunciation among his students. And he should realize his students that learning a second language pronunciation, especially English language pronunciation, would be very useful for them in future. And failure to do that might frustrate them in their own conversations and communications in the future. And in this regard, teachers may use awareness building activities within the classroom, or even sometimes before the beginning of the proper teaching in the classroom. 1 or 2 classes may be devoted to this purpose. There are certain concerns for pronunciation teaching, and among them, the first one is what students can hear. Sometimes second language learners find it very difficult to hear and understand the sounds of a second language. And these are especially those sounds which are not available in their own first languages. Therefore, they cannot distinguish between those sounds. And when they cannot distinguish between those sounds, it would be very difficult for them to pronounce or speak those sounds later on. There are possibly 2 ways to deal with such problems. First of all, we may acquaint our students with the ways how sounds are made through demonstrations, diagrams, or explanations. Then we can always draw the attention of students towards those sounds when they appear on a recording or in a real-life conversation between teachers and students, or in any other social situation. In this way, we can train our students to get the knowledge of unfamiliar sounds which are not available in their own language, and we can assume when they would hear correctly, they can also say those sounds later on correctly. Another problem or challenge in a second language pronunciation teaching could be what students say. And there is always an element of unfamiliarity with the sounds of a second language, especially it comes to pronounce them. In this regard, we can explain our students about the sounds, and we can also explain where those sounds are produced in human body. For example, we could train them to know that while producing a particular sound, what was the movement of lips or the tongue inside the mouth, and what was the location of teeth at that time. Were lips rounded or not? This kind of physical description can help them in knowing the production of sounds in the human body. And in this way, they might be able to say them in a better way. Another problem could be the intonation problem. How to rise and fall sound in English language to convey a certain meaning or to stress upon certain things. This is possibly the most problematic area of pronunciation teaching. And according to some surveys, it has come to the knowledge of various researchers that many English language teachers may not be fully aware of this area of pronunciation. Therefore, this poses a greater challenge to the teaching of pronunciation in various parts of the world. And many, as I said, many students therefore would find it very difficult to understand the rise and fall of various tones. But this does not mean that we should abandon the teaching of intonation or the rise and fall of tones. Rather, we should strive to know them, and we should try to imitate them as much as we can within the classroom. In this regard, teachers can also give the students some serious opportunities to recognize various moods and intentions through recordings, or they could model them for their students within the classroom. How to make a request, and while making a request, on which part of the sentence the focus should be or stress should be, this can be conveyed to the students through various drills. Later on, teachers can ask their students to imitate those patterns and moods, and then they could ask them to articulate them independently. While teaching pronunciation, the role of teacher is very important, especially when we keep these aspects which I have just mentioned in mind. Teacher can make his students hear foreign sounds, the sounds of foreign language properly. He should manage that there is no ambiguity in the listening of the students, and they can distinguish between sounds to a satisfactory level. He can also help learners make those sounds through repetition and practice, especially those sounds which are not available in learner's own language. So teacher could make a list of such sounds and can make his students practice them. Feedback is very important because students would never be satisfied with their learning, and they would never be confident enough unless they get a proper feedback from their teachers. And if teachers fail to provide feedback, students may develop wrong assumptions about the learning. They might consider a wrong pronunciation the correct one, or a correct one as the wrong one. So teacher, while teaching pronunciation, has to give a very quick feedback sometimes to his or her students. In this regard, teacher can also establish priorities, that which sounds should be taught first and which later, and what kind of stress patterns should be introduced earlier. For this purpose, teacher may also prepare a plan of action with the students and share it with the students in advance to the classroom instruction. Devising useful activities and assessing the progress of their students is very important, and probably very important in the sense that it would keep our students motivated in learning pronunciation. So teachers should ensure that they devise proper strategies and activities in order to keep the process of pronunciation learning going.